So my presentation about Arab women's writing in the land of prohibition, the representation of female body and sexuality in modern Arabic literature. My name is Miral Maghoub Al-Tahawy. I'm associate professor at Arizona State University, and I'm teaching literature in general, and also Arab women's writing as intersection with gender and sexuality. So Arab women's literature has gone many changes across generations. Since its early beginning, such writing was linked to women's liberation movement, to dreams of breaking free of social restriction and rebellion against social set norms and custom and tradition. This is one of the facts about literature in Arab in modern Arabic literature. So most of the writing, especially the first generation, was focusing on rebellion against set norms and refusing or rejection. So the fundamental goal of my study, which I'm working on it, to explore the representation of female body and sexuality through analysis of different generations that belong to different phases and different form of literature. I will review the historical background of writing about sexuality as a major taboo in modern Arabic writing through the analysis of selected texts written by female writers from different countries in Arab world. This is actually the core component of my work here.
Sorry, I don't want to interrupt you, but they don't see the presentation. That's what they are saying.
Okay. So the fundamental goal of my study is to explore the representation of female body through analysis of different generations that belong to different historical phases and different form of literary expression. So I said I will explore the background of writing about sexuality as a major taboo in modern Arabic writing through the analysis of selected texts written by female writers from different generations. Sorry, I'm not familiar with this computer. So my goal is to dissect the way in which the carnal body has actually and symbolically has been presented and represented in Arab women's literature. I will examine how this writing approaches the feminine body and how this writing uses the body as a tool to challenge authority. I argue that the female narrative dealing with body and sexuality employ the body as a metaphorical vehicle to revolt against social set norms and political and patriarchal authority too. This writing is also an act of resistance against extremist religious rhetoric in Arab society. So the first generation, or the first part of my study, will cover the early writing. The comparison between, this is very important to me, comparison between two generations or different generations. First will enable me to examine the way in which the female body, both actually and symbolically, has been presented and represented as a motif used for the purpose of exploring or revealing or stripping bare or scandalize, or in Arabic, fadah, both the self and the society with its absolute social mores. Second, the comparison will enable me to explore how the literature is received by the audience, observing the growing change in readers' expectation through times, along with social awareness of freedom. The first generation, I will focus on the writing of Alifa Rifat, and she is a major figure actually in modern Arabic literature. And she has a very, very many stations in her life, which make her one of the very famous and outstanding writers, in fact, in that matter. The first part of my study, I will review the representation of the body and as a sexual theme during the 60s, a time where female writing was deeply connected to the feminist movement in Egypt and in Arab world, and to the national cause also. This generation of that generation perspective and discourse show ideological commitment to both social and political liberation, including anti-colonial struggle and feminist cause. So it was combined, both rejection of the patriarchal society and also colonial struggle at that time. Many examples of that writing during the 60s and 70s reflect Western feminist discourse and endure the female body as a symbol of feminist principle, paying attention to the trauma which the body is subjected, showing the female bodies struggling against culture attitude, and calling for liberating that body from patriarchal and sexual domination and gender oppression. I will give a particular attention to the work of Alifa Rifat, who I consider her one of the most important voices at that time. I will examine how she represents different venues in Arabic thoughts about female bodies and sexuality. Then, moving forward to the 90s. I also belong to this generation, the 90s, female who started writing during, after 40 years or half century of the first movement. A critic observed during the 90s that a new approach to writing about sexuality grew and tend to be a phenomena. A large number of female writers burst into the literary scene together. They not only use explicit narrative about their sexuality, but also state pornographic elements, sensual theme, and erotic fantasies. This is one of the covers of one of the famous writers during the 90s. The Proof of Honey by Salwa Noaimi, the book really published widely, translated to French, become a best-selling in no time. That was the first novel of Salwa, and as you can see, the cover is really explicit. So the body became a major focus of Arab women's writing, and titles of many literary work, considering, it's become part of the title, considering body like Al-Jasad. So among these titles, we have Dhakirat al-Jasad, Memory of a Flush by Ahlam Mustaghanmi, Innahu Jasadi, It's My Body by Nabila Zubair, Out of the Body, Kharij al-Jasad by Afaf al-Batayna. So the body become part of many titles as al-Jasad. I can really count 100 titles using body and maybe connotation of sexuality for selling, for attracting attention, or maybe because the sexuality became a major theme of that generation. So among the 90s generation, the work of Mona Prince, and this is her novel, So You May See Me, was really unexpected and maybe representing too much the phenomenon. Among these voices of the 90s in Egypt, the name of Mona Prince, Amayt al-Misani, and Noor Amin, and Sahar al-Mur, and others, actually. Perhaps most prominent representative of that literary is Mona Prince. And in her novel, So You May See, she demonstrates unusual audacity in the expression of female sexuality. Actually, was really courage to publish this novel. In my second chapter, I will cover and analyze the novel of Mona Prince. Mona Prince, in her novel, actually, for the first time, maybe in Egypt, chose to find someone who described her sexuality as a female and not really applying by the rules of the society. So she was, I mean, in many articles, they describe her writing as naked writing or uncovered, and actually expressed her desire as a female without feeling any shame. Mona Prince was my colleague at Cairo University, and she, I mean, she has been actually lately terminate her contract with the university because of, I think, one scene in her Facebook dancing or something like that. So the university just terminate her work because she is not, this is one of the arguments, she is not representing the professorship and kind of values of the university. So she is home now. She is actually a writer, yeah. But this one was an action against her, and was a very long debate about, is the university have anything to do with my personal account or Facebook? Is dancing is against anything? I mean, it was a casual dancing actually in a small video, but this is clarify to us how the society was anti this kind of personality who dare to describe, who dare to, and actually academic also was not tolerating. So the second, so writing about female body and sexuality as a phenomena was not merely Egyptian actually, but rather Arab. And so in third chapter, I will examine so-called the rise of female voice in Saudi novels, as called the rise of female voice in Saudi novel as appeared or headed by a number of young women writers who were born and brought up in the oil era and witnessed deep changes in the conservative Saudi society. Suddenly, by the end of 90s, there's many Saudi writers publish novels, very open, very, I mean, very obvious habit. But I have to say that most of the top names, they are unknown. They use nicknames, unknown names, and publish through the internet. And this is actually my next slide. The most clear example of this writing, I will give you some example of Saudi writing actually. Clear example of this writing would be the novel of Banat al-Riyadh or Riyadh Girl. The novel is again significant success because of the audacity in tackling many of sexual taboos in the representation of female sexuality, as well as daring to challenge Saudi authority. The book is considered by many foreign newspapers, such as the New York Times and Independent, the representation in sex in Saudi society. The novel has been translated to English very quick. And some of the people, they compare it with Sex and City. It was the same theme. For female, they are confessing about their sexual and intimate sexual life. The novel has been translated to 26 languages, published widely electronically after being banned in Saudi Arabia. The second novel, and also translated to English, is Al-Akharun by Saba Al-Hirz. The writer is unknown, actually. This is a nickname. She published under pseudonyms according to her publisher. The novel revolves around lesbian relationship between two Saudi girls. It also depicts the Shia community in Saudi Arabia. The novel has touched upon the sense of taboos in the society. The Shia community and homosexuality in Saudi society. And both is a major issues in the Saudi society, homosexuality and the different sect. The novel posed many questions about the identity of the writer. For example, who is Sabah al-Hirs? Why hasn't appeared not even for foreign media after translation and become a star? Why is it her writing appear to be swinging between masculinity and femininity? So most of the pronoun, it's really swinging between feminine and male pronouns, and this is it's a bit like mistakes, type of mistake, but it's not mistake, it's really using both, and it's clear in Arabic, the pronoun in female and I mean Arabic language stress on this difference between the female and the feminine and male pronouns. The third novel, it's Al-Awbah. Al-Awbah is the return to God, to ask God for forgiveness in Arabic. So the third novel I will examine is Al-Awbah. This is the subtitle of the novel, a sexual biography of female protagonist that starts within her school days by Ward Abdel Malik. I will focus on the controversy that arose about the true identity of the writer. Later on, he revealed his name as a man and announced that he had used the women's pseudonyms to express the dilemma of Saudi girls and the sexual oppression imposed on female body. So, in my study, I will examine the use of pseudonyms or virtual identity and explore how cyberspace help to create alternative form of self-expression and enable female authors to break boundaries between their public and private selves, allowing them to expose erotic and desire and homosexuality by using multiple anonymous identities. The final selection of my book, I will examine the representation of female sexuality after Arab Spring. This is actually the third chapter. I don't know if you know much about Arab Spring or not, but it was uprising during the 2010-11 in Tunisia and Egypt, and so it was. It's a revolutionary mood in Arab societies. This is why they call it Arab Spring. So in the final part, I will examine the representation of female sexuality after Arab Spring, with the wave of new writing about female sexuality as known as explicit writing. So we have a new wave in writing. They call it in Arabic explicit writing, also called naked writings. And Al-Kitab al-Ariya, this is the translation of it. The emergence of a new radical trend that utilize prohibited sensual scene, explicit sexual language, pornographic and erotic elements. Most of this new wave is stating desire rather than attempt to cover it with suggestive language or any kind of insinuation. They speak directly about their emotion and sexual desires. So, in the study, I will explore whether this new writing after Arab Spring can be classified as erotic writing or it is an act of revolution. Investigating this writing that run metaphorically parallel to nude feminist protest movement, and both use the female body as a tool to free women's sexuality. So to what degree the feminist nudity movement has influenced the rhetoric of a new female writing after Arab Spring? We know that there is a connection between the rise of the feminist nude movement and this type of writing. Examine whether this explicit writing offers a link to topless activist movement or femin. As we know, a large number of Arab feminists joined the femin movement and participated in active nude protest. For example, the artist Halal Faisal from Syria stood up naked in public square in London to protest against war in Syria. Similarly, Egypt blogger Ali Al-Mahdi published her nude photo during the Arab Revolution in Egypt, and several Tunisian activists took the similar action against fundamental religious group in Tunisia. So if there is a connection between the two, the discourse of writing and other, this one of my, this is Alia Al-Mahdi. She published her naked photo, and she joined, actually, this is when outside Egypt, she joined the naked movement to protest. I mean, she is carrying the flag of Egypt. How both nude movement and that explosion of explicit female writing relate to political and social protest movement that overtook the region and came to be known as Arab Spring. So what is the connection between both? In fact, why both movement, writing and nude, why they use the body in that matter? I mean, why exactly naked photos is important? Finally, the study will investigate the intersection between three factors: the social and political movement, explicit writing, extreme religious rhetoric, and nude feminist protest, and how all these three components, the very extreme religious rhetoric with very extreme naked protest, with writing, actually, the new wave of writing, how the three factors connect within the context of political upheaval overtook the region during the last 10 years. I argue that this is my argument. The new tendency in women's writing has significant impact or implication in that shadow of polarized social and political background. Both the nude movement and explicit writing represent or amplify a radical reaction against patriarchal and religious discourse in Arab society. I could be wrong, but this is what I'm trying to say, that it's just a radical reaction of the conservative, because lately the very extreme religious discourse is extremely overtook the region. So finally, I have to, this is a brief overview of my project about the representation of female writing and sexuality in Arab region. Thank you so much, guys. Thank you for